In this video, I'll be going to Hotelling's laws, applications, and media. First, let's recap what we learned in my previous video. I placed the link in the description, but essentially Hotelling's law allows us to predict how individuals act when confronted with multiple choices. Individuals are placed equally distributed based on one attribute. It can be physical distance from a store, their preference of brand, or any example that has two polarizing extremes. For this review, let's choose physical distance from a store. When both stores are placed in the middle, consumers will equally disperse because the necessary travel time is equal for both. However, if one store is at location 8 and one store is at location 7, the distribution of customers changes. This is because it takes less time to travel to location 7 from locations 1 through 6 than it does for them to travel to location 8. Hotelling's law can also be used to explain why presidential candidates often have extreme views during primary elections, but more moderate views during the general election. In order to distinguish themselves in a primary, it is in a candidate's best interest to polarize themselves to the far left or far right. This way, they are isolated from contenders who often compete for the same amount of votes in a small area. The polarized candidates are then left with little competition for their extremist voters and the voters to the far left and near far right. Their chances of moving past the primary are greatly increased when they polarize their views. In the general election, we can see a great example of how Hotelling's law can be used to distinguish a far left and far right candidate that are running against each other. Part of Hotelling's law is making strategical moves to increase the amount of individuals under your influence. Opponents will then react to these moves with changes of their own. In a situation with an unlimited amount of moves, Hotelling's law commonly ends in a stalemate. In the example of a general presidential election with polarized candidates, the tendency for both politicians to gradually adopt more moderate views coming towards the center. If the red candidate was to move first, they would steal votes from the blue candidate because their political views are most in line with the red candidate, regardless of what political party they're in. Political party is not important in this situation because when we consider the example of physical store location, the travel time is the deciding factor. However, in this example, mental distance traveled is the deciding factor. Individuals choose their candidate based on how closely a presidential candidate aligns with one's political and social values. Again, it is the mental distance traveled rather than physical distance when it comes to presidential candidates. Based on this assumption, the blue candidate will then make a similar move towards a more moderate view. This will balance the number of voters in each party and make the election closer. Hotelling's law provides valuable insight into why politicians change their mind on issues. Hopefully you can apply this information into the upcoming election.